This is a lesson how I taught the P and B sounds to some Vietnamese students. They were university age, 18 to 20 years old, and they were elementary. Okay, the reason I'm choosing this topic is, although they have the sounds in Vietnamese, because of the differences in the language, they are very different where the tone, these phonemes can occur in a word, and also in the way they are produced. Vietnamese is a monosyllabic language, so if we take the phoneme B, there are many words in Vietnamese that start with a B. However, it never appears as a final consonant. It never appears as a final phoneme. On the other hand, P, it never occurs as a first phoneme. When it occurs at the end of a word, it's quite glottalized and not really aspirated. An example of this is the word for fat in Vietnamese is map. Map, spelt M-A-P, as we would say map, but then they really just stop on P, map. The air isn't released. Okay, the sorts of errors this seems to listen to in speaking, so it isn't clear if it's a P or B. Sometimes it affects their listening skills. Example, audio, listen to someone's phoning in work because he's sick, so he can't come in, and what's wrong with him? And he's got a bad back, but many students write he's got a bad pack. Not only they haven't heard the word, their bottom-up listening skills are not good, but as John Ford talks about in his books, their top-down listening strategies are not good. Bad pack really doesn't make sense in this context. So there's a lot of work to do with listening, and improving the pronunciation would help. It also affects their spelling. They might write, I went to a nightclub, rather than nightclub. Okay. As a warmer, the lesson is first thing in the morning, or was first thing in the morning, so they're a little bit tired. I would have a group of words on the board, sort of target vocabulary with words beginning with B, and P, or ending in those, and divide them into two teams. Give each team a fly swatter. I would shout out a word. The person in each team with the fly swatter must run to the board, hit the correct word that I said. If they get it right, the first team, if they hit the word and get it right, gets a point, but if they hit the wrong word, they lose the point. It's a bit of fun. Right, then the main part of the lesson. First, sit down and let's focus on the sounds. Start with B, because it's quite common in their language, and just say a few words. Big, bat, ball. Let's look at how the sounds are produced, lips together, before coming apart. Put the hand to the throat, you'll notice with big, bat, it's a voiced sound. Also, big, bat, there's not much air coming out, it's not aspirated. Now, go to P and look at it at the ends of the word, say like map or cup. Similarly, P, lips together before coming apart. Notice it isn't voiced, map, cup, there's no vibration of the vocal cords, but it is aspirated. Map, cup. Get the students to put their hand in front of their mouth to feel the air, or if they have to, a piece of paper. Map, cup. I think it's okay here to exaggerate the aspiration, really to get them to do it. Okay. Done a bit of practice. I do a similar exercise like the first one, listening for words. Adapted this from English Pronunciation in Use, quite a decent book. Write some words in there on the book. The audio would then play the words. I'd ask them to number them or write them down as they heard them. The reason I use audio here is I don't want them always to get used to my voice. They need to learn a range of accents. I'd have to add to this though, all of the words in the book either begin or start with P. I also want to produce some words as a final phoneme. Okay. The next activity works very, very well on small groups, and I learnt this from Underhill in his book. I'd have the students stood around the board close to me. First, give them an opportunity with the words on the board. They can point to any word, I will say it. So they've got a model. Next, I want to test their ability to hear and differentiate the sounds. So I would give a student a pointer. I would say a word on the board and want them to point to what they hear. So if they get it wrong, I just say it again until they can get it, and they tend to tune their hearing. Mostly it tends to work quite well. At first they might be a little bit wrong, they tend to tune their hearing. Everybody gets a go at that, then we change over. I take the pointer, I nominate a student to say any word on the board, and I point to what I heard them say. And if it's not distinct, the boundary isn't clear, then I'm going to point somewhere in the middle or point away from them, saying it's not good enough. This way they have to tune their voice to get it to make the right sound. Okay, putting the words into practice then, some activities to practice this. Some student-to-students dictation. Use the words we had earlier, get a student to say one or three of them, and the other students in the group to write down what they heard. I think it helps to have them write this in groups because you might have errors on the speaker or the listener. With 3 listeners, hopefully they will agree to some extent. And finally, it's not really productive as such, but I do something like a running dictation, have a nonsensical script using many of the words, put it outside the room, students in pairs, one has to get up, run, read, put in the script, come back, tell his partner, who then must write it down. There's an added difficulty. I make sure they put their hands behind their back, because otherwise, if they're not very clear, they tend to draw the phonemes to their partner. I really want them to concentrate on producing it. I could get them to write their own scripts, but with elementary students, this tends to take rather a long time. Maybe some strong students could do it. Okay, how did the lesson work? It's going to take time. You're not going to sort these problems out in one lesson. But I think the activity with the aspiration, putting a hand there or a piece of paper certainly helps, because when they make the problem again, they're reminded of that. And the activity around the board that Underhill talks about, that was very, very well. Even the student who isn't working, who can tell the others, they're usually listening intently, they're saying the words to themselves to try and tune their accent. They can hear someone having difficulties, and they might have the same difficulties themselves. Thank you.